Hello there. I didn't even see you. It's a little hard to notice things at these low resolutions. I've got a very special review for you today. I even went the extra mile and got myself into the spirit of adventure, trademark, for authenticity's sake. What? What? No, not the boat, you twits, the spirit... Oh, never mind. Here's a review of Quest for Infamy by Infamous Adventures. I swear you people ruin everything. Before I move on to my review of Quest for Infamy, I must briefly touch on the tradition upon which the game builds. In the 1980s, Sierra Online was one of the leading companies in the industry, with a strong market force thanks to its recognizable adventure games spanning everything from fantasy kingdoms, science fiction and police procedurals. But in 1989, a husband and wife team, Corey and Laurie Cole, working for Sierra, developed a game that was very different from the formula of your standard adventure game. Indeed, the Quest for Glory series, originally titled Hero's Quest, defined the genre of the adventure role-playing hybrid. It became a pentalogy that ended 10 years later on a high point and created legions of devoted fans all over the world. The first game, subtitled So You Want to Be a Hero, put you in the inexperienced boots of a young but idealistic hero arriving at a crisis-infested valley in the nick of time. Every time you beat a game in the series, you were allowed to save your character so that you may import him into the next sequel and thus maintain a sense of progression and continuity. The series spans 5 lands inspired by German, Arabian, African, Romanian and Greek mythologies, and your character evolves from a greenhorn to a mighty hero. Few game series at the time had the good fortune to end on a good note, but Quest for Glory managed to avoid a bitter end. One of the great features of the series was that each character class could approach puzzle solutions from different angles, adding a great deal to replayability. The entire pentalogy can be bought at Good Old Games, and it remains just as entertaining and interesting as it did back when it was released. It should then come as no surprise that Quest for Infamy is very much a palpable homage to Quest for Glory, as much as it is its own game. You are cast in the role of Mr. Rome, a bona fide lech, rogue and scoundrel who must make a hasty retreat after being caught canoodling with the Baron's daughter. A weeks-long hay cart ride and presumably a repertoire of road songs later, Rome finds himself unable to continue his journey due to an inconveniently collapsed major bridge. Soon, and very much against his will, he becomes embroiled in the troubles and tribulations of the valley's inhabitants and pulled deeper and deeper into a sinister plot that is tied to a tragedy and a cursed family whose mansion ruins loom menacingly in the northern woods. Right from the start, you get a good glimpse of who the leading man is. He's not so much a villain as he is a self-absorbed reprobate of the hedonistic variety with a tinge of malice. He's not a villain, but rather more of a lazy Han Solo type figure. The colorful cast of characters in the valley is well written and memorable, from bickering yet disturbingly besotted greengrocers to the Doctor Strange-like magician Prospero. There's a good deal of personality invested in them, and while there is a fair amount of gentle pokes at the genre tropes, the humor never really transgresses to the point of turning the game into a farce. Yes, there is a curse, there is a cult, 2 actually, shadowy figures vying for power, an object of great portent, conspiracies, and yet it works. The world that Infamous Quest has created feels alive with its own lore and history, and in no way feels like it is there only to serve up the humor. In some ways, it feels very familiar. This is the kind of detailed world we've seen in the Quest for Glory series, made of part myth and folklore and part high fantasy with a streak of subversive humor as its ground. Yet Quest for Infamy does not come across as merely aping the series. It is a world of its own. And what a lovely world it is. The pixel art is simply beautiful, each region being unique and full of detail. The forest feels suitably overgrown and foreboding. The grasslands are oceans of grass and sky. Volksville is your typical Germanic mountain village, while the port of Tyr is gleaming white stone and pseudo-Mediterranean splendor. To this, add dungeons, swamps, waterfalls, and many other locales to make up a world that truly feels large and inhabited. Like in Quest for Glory, the player has the option to specialize and choose one of 3 classes, which are the equivalents of the mage, the fighter, and the thief. The game's replayability is quite impressive, as each class has specific locales and characters exclusive to them, as well as their own style of solving puzzles in accordance with their skill set. While the overall story is the same, the journey to the final destination varies, and its conclusion is both satisfactory as well as it is in character for the protagonist. In the aspect of sound and music, the game delivers a surprisingly solid soundtrack and sound effects. By the time you are done with the game, you will most likely want to purchase the soundtrack, which is available from the game's website. Quest for Infamy does have its rough edges. While a good amount of voiceover work is fantastic, some of it is on the erratic side. While the narrator, for example, provides a consistent and amusing performance that oozes contempt, some of the minor roles suffer from a stilted delivery and occasional dip in sound quality. However, this does not prove to be too distracting, and you can always turn off the voices if you prefer to go old school and just play the game with text. What can be an issue is the occasional bugs. During my run-through, I experienced only one major bug, which stalled the game twice, but upon reloading from a saved game from a few seconds earlier, the bug did not repeat itself again. Another bug kept me from collecting an optional item for the endgame, but fortunately it was an optional item and it did not affect my ability to finish the game. The developers are very quick to respond to bug reports and are already working on an update to that. Aside from hammering out known bugs, will also include some extra content for the game. Since this is an adventure RPG hybrid, stats and combat are significant portions of the game. The best way to describe combat in Quest for Infamy is to say that it is a variant of the active time battle system, where the player has a series of actions available to them and which they must select within a specific time frame, or otherwise their turn will pass. Aside from the basic attacks, the player has the option of using his character's specific skill set in combat. At first, Rome is weak, and several encounters may feel too close a call for comfort, but as your stats grow through practice and your active new skills improve, soon you will find the best strategies to keep yourself victorious. For further help, there is a seasoned explorer at the inn in Volksville, whom you can always consult if you wish to know what kinds of attacks are best against specific kinds of enemies. And the game does convey your progress quite well, since at the higher levels you can easily trounce enemies who had you fearing for your life early on. That being said, only a few fights are truly obligatory, those that are related to the main storyline. Most other combat is easily avoided, however I would recommend against it. The puzzles, such as they are in this game, are on the whole logical and lack the esoteric nature of most old-school adventure games. I did roll my eyes at the presence of one particular puzzle, the classic triangle peg puzzle, which felt out of place and which was a mild annoyance. Nevertheless, I never felt myself at a total loss. There are, however, some missed opportunities for skills throughout the game. Although the sorcerer, for example, possesses a levitation and an unlocking spell, those spells are only implemented very specifically. There are areas where using the cloud levitation spell would be common sense, but it wasn't implemented, and so the game tells you that you have nowhere you want to go. Similarly, trying to unlock doors that the designers didn't mean for you to open can often leave you with the puzzling message that the door is locked. I know, that's why I cast Unlock Door. Something along the lines of mentioning that door, for example, seems to be barred as well as locked would make more sense, since the spell only deals with locks. There is one house near the bank that responds to the unlock spell, and so every time you cast a spell in that screen, you will enter that particular house. This is so that the sorcerer can never really rob the bank, even if he is casting the spell while standing next to the bank door. Again, these are minor quibbles, but they do put a few wrinkles in what is otherwise a nicely implemented experience. Now, one objection was raised by Rock Paper Shotgun reviewer Richard Cobbett concerning characterization in Quest for Infamy, saying that Rowan is a man with no drive, no passion, and he certainly wouldn't say no to a roll in the hay with a pretty girl or the promise of treasure, but he doesn't give the impression of a man who wants anything except to be left alone, to stooge around the world. Now, this is true that Rome does want to be left alone, yet that is not in and of itself a bad character motivation, especially when the story is plotted around thwarting that want. The majority of Rome's actions in the game are informed by this desire, and it becomes apparent to him that the only way that he will get what he wants is if he eventually solves the incoming crisis. And even then, there are moments where he considers bailing out only to be stopped by the realization that those behind the conspiracy would likely come after him. Ultimately, Rome wishes to continue his life of wanderlust and hedonism, looking out only for himself, but the circumstances that he finds himself in make it unavoidable for him to take care of business, accidentally becoming a hero. But in this, he really is not very different from other adventure characters. Roger Wilco in the Space Quest series was a lazy janitor who did not so much act as his own motivator as he had circumstances upon circumstances piled upon him and who stumbled upon from one crisis to another. He does not really become a self-motivated character until the fourth game in the series. Space Quest was a humorous game, and Quest for Infamy definitely has a humorous side to it, so it is fitting that its protagonist, instead of being a self-motivated go-getter, be more against type. 2014 so far has been a great year for lovers of this genre, with Heroine's Quest, review pending, leading the charge, Quest for Infamy adding another superb serving, and the potential release of Lorien Corico's next game, Hero U, later in the year. Overall, Quest for Infamy is an excellent game. It can be addictive, and in many ways it feels like a continuation of the style of storytelling that the Quest for Glory franchise began, only of course with the ability to expand into a length and depth that weren't possible 20 years ago due to technical limitations. Would I recommend this game? Definitely. It has solid writing and good fun, memorable characters, gorgeous locations, and it certainly begs for a sequel. I know, at least, that I want to see more of this world by the time the curtain comes down, and that's all you can ever ask from a game, really. Well, that's all we have for this review. Join us next time when hopefully I will make the full transition into 3D. What? No budget, but my contract... What? What? I have no contract? That's it. I'm out.